I've been building guitars for pretty much most of my life. Started building my first guitar back in probably in early 70s sometime, and was a kid that wanted a good guitar that couldn't afford a good guitar. So I started whittling away and first started building guitars just to give it a shot and buying old cheapy guitars and rebuilding them, and pretty much started building because I wanted to write music and needed something to, hello pigeons, needed something better to do it with, so it was all cool. I started applying at Fender guitars when I was like 16 years old. I was real fortunate to live nearby Fullerton, and so I started applying at Fender as a young guy and got hired on at 21. And very shortly after being hired, I got the privilege of being taken into research and development and working with people like Freddie Tavares and Ed Johns and Harold Rhodes and all these famous old cats, and learned design chops there, and was a model maker, made a lot of the prototype guitars and amps and everything. So I was at Fender for many, many years. Left for a while to work on my music in the studio in the mid-'80s sometime, and then came back and started the Fender Custom Shop with Mike Stevens in '87, and had the fortunate opportunity to run that shop for 12 plus years and work with some great builders like J.W.Black and John Sir and Fred Stewart, and a lot of old friends that I was able to hire and bring in, and after 20 plus years at Fender, I left there for a few years and started the Fender Museum and started an educational program called Kids Rock Free, and was able to get that going. And after, in the early 2000s, I left that and moved up to Oregon in the States, and started building guitars again shortly thereafter. So now I'm back to guitar building, which is my original passion. That was my passion for many years as a kid, and has come back to it. And I'm having a great time, really enjoying building what I want to build now, and building them the way I want to build them, and designing them the way I want to design, which is obviously very limiting when you're working for another company, because especially like Fender, that is so historic and very specific instruments, and that's what the public wants to see. So for me, I'm able to be a lot freer and design instruments that I see fit now, and it's great. I'm having a great time. Well, my new company, John Page Guitars, actually it's not that new, but relatively new. It's about 5 years now, and I got re-inspired. After I left Fender, I kind of lost some of the passion because it was kind of corporate, and I was more into the passion of the one-off individual building, taking the time. I'm very much into working with my hands, not machinery, not computer-controlled machinery anyway. And so technology, as much as I respect technology and have a great admiration for technology, it's not how I like to build. I like to build from the heart and with my hands, and with the wood, going out to the wood cutters and finding that wood, you know, as rough as I can get it, and bring it in. And I love that transformation from raw material to a beautiful instrument. So when I started John Page Guitars, initially it took me a while to decide to do it, because I was thinking, well, if I'm going to build again, I have to do something totally unique and totally different, and I kept trying to beat myself up as a designer, where I've been a designer for, you know, my whole life, of how can I design something completely different. And then after a while I realized that it wasn't that it had to be completely different, maybe it was just the way I approached it completely differently. So as opposed to it being business, it was art, and it was passion, and it was doing things that people don't do so much anymore, which is just using my hands. And so I designed, the first guitar I designed was the P1, which was very traditionally styled. All my guitars are pretty traditional. It's a style I called uniquely familiar. They are inspired by many different guitars, but combined to create a very unique design, but it's familiar. And you know, you don't look at it and feel like it's way out there into Cleveland somewhere. I mean, it's a very traditional design. I was looking for very traditional tones, but because my background was a songwriter, I was looking to create, and I look to create to this day, guitars that inspire me when I play them. I want to feel them. I want to feel them through my body. I want to feel the vibrations. I want complexity in my guitars. I want complexity in the sound of my guitars. And I use the finest woods that I can find, the finest tone woods. I'm trying to use more and more sustainable woods when I can, locally grown woods for me, which is the Pacific Northwest of the States. So I'm trying to use more redwoods and walnuts and maples and cedars and, you know, just really woods that you know are sustainable. Although I still use a lot of traditional classic tone woods when I can get them as well, like genuine mahogany and Brazilian. I hand build all my guitars from scratch. It's just me in the shop, there's no one else. I build maybe 18 to 20 guitars a year from start to finish. In fact, for the guitars that I'm doing here in Japan, for the Kurosawa company, I developed a new bridge called the Wood Tone Bridge, which has got actually acrylized ebony saddles. They're wooden saddles on the bridge that are compensated for tuning. It's like the old Telly as far as having 3 saddles. But the ebony is actually vacuum infused with polymers and things, so it's very strong, and it gives a whole different tone to the guitars, a very chesty acoustic sound, which is the tone I'm looking for. I've always loved Fenders, like I said, but I always wanted a little more depth and body to them, and so tonally that's what I look for with my instruments. And I try to build instruments that are heirlooms, basically, you know, guitars that you would be happy to pass down to your children or your grandchildren. I'm not looking at making a guitar that's hip for this year or the next 2 years. I'm looking for longevity in my guitars, and you know, I want them to be timeless, you know. So that's what I'm doing. I'm having a wonderful time doing it, and I'm happy to be sharing it here with everyone in Japan.